welcome to the Anglo-Russian Culture Club, and today, to be honest, we have a very special event. So I felt a bit embarrassed because on one hand it's one of our key specialties, and it's my own specialty because I've been studying bilingual authors for quite a while. And so the club is generally producing events that try to investigate the dialogue between the two and more cultures and trying to find some common threads, and at the same time we focus very much on the specificity of each of our languages and, well, visual cultures, and try to introduce them to the UK viewer and reader, and also to, well, try to investigate what's happening in the contemporary Russian culture. And I think this is, I don't know if Larissa had a chance to introduce this very special house, so we're very privileged to hold our literary events here and some of the music recitals. So I think this is Clementi House, but I think just more than one composer. I think Mendelssohn also at some point stayed here, and Clementi actually, well, spent quite some time and lived and composed here. And I think there's a legend, I don't know if it's true, I think Larissa claims that it is true, that some of the bricks in this 18th century house were taken from Russia. So
no, vice versa.
Vice versa. Oh, okay.
They didn't let their stones to go to Russia. The whole street sold some stones for the building. Oh, it's a legend, for the building of St. Petersburg, but not this house. That's why it's a bit higher, and the garden is higher than all the rest. So it has negative connection.
Okay. Yes.
The house has a negative connection.
Yeah, so it's even more. Yes, exactly. A missed chance to have a connection. Anyway, and right now, to be honest, it's a very welcoming, special place. The owner of the house still lives here. It's Tom Stacey, who is a foreign correspondent and a novelist himself, and a publisher as well. And right now, well, he welcomes all kind of interesting events and people to his house. So I don't think we can tour everywhere because the family actually still live upstairs, but still I hope that you'll enjoy this very special ambience of the house. I'll be at the door. And yes, and I think that I'm really looking forward to listening to Anna Parijskaia's work both in English and in Russian, right? And I think we'll have a proper reading and performance in a sense, right, if I'm not mistaken. So I think Anna will read her Russian work, and she'll be helped by her friend and actress to do all the English parts.
Thank you, Larissa, for inviting me and giving this opportunity to read these stories, and thank you very much for coming. There's a lot of people here who heard the stories many times, and I appreciate that they came to hear it like one more time, and some people first time, so I'm really looking forward to, and I think we'll read it.
Yeah, okay. My name is Vera Horton, and thank you very much, Anna, for inviting me to read the stories. English is not my first language, so I'm a bilingual actress.
Neither mine.
But I will try to put sort of as much Englishness into it as I possibly could. I will start with the Family Chronicle, or another name is the name of the book, The Black and White Lovers. Curls of fire caged in glass, tactile Anna on tiptoes, sipping brandy, brows like minks, slipping off from porcelain, noble nostrils, royal chin. She got it from her mama, the thread of DNA from the black and white lovers on the old photo. Jason is going to be 90 this year, and Medea is beside him on the picture, is still beautiful. Unraveling the thread through generation, Daisy married Needle still. He was sleek and shiny, strong as needles are, never bent, and prickles really painful, leaving ruby dots of blood around her neck for the anniversary. Daisy tried to put the thread through the needle's eye, but he had different plans for his exotic-looking bride. Butterfly pricked through the body, pinned on the purple velvet cushion, preserved in the box as Needle's trophy. Maria Josephine had a difficult labor and now looked at the baby with tears of joy. At last, she has given her husband a pride. She was an observant lady and believed in values. She even shared a joke with others, not so lucky mothers, that her needle even poops symmetrically in little cubes. And the midwife said, at the age of 23, he will become needle still, a man of law and order. He loved New York. He felt the city was inspired by the story of creation from the book of Genesis. From the age of 6, he was forced to read it by his father. He was his father's favorite, and not like others, needle had never let him down. The stalagmites of skyscrapers of Manhattan, as high as his own desire for success. He felt enraptured in this glib and clean, symmetrically erected crystal jungle before he got stung by a bumblebee, rested on Daisy's shoulder, and suddenly became dizzy. He saw a kaleidoscope of multiple reflections of her delicate beauty in the bright glass maze of the New York City. For the first time in his life, Needle realized he is not indifferent to the nature. Daisy is holding some sort of incredible connection with it, something he doesn't have, so he asked her to marry him. He called her Mowgli. Scorpions and bumblebees were her pets. She had resistance to the poison, an amazing gift from nature, a mutation after a snake bite at the age of 3. No one believed she will survive, but she did. Medea stayed up all night. She didn't cry. She even didn't pray. She remained still for 46 hours, and Daisy opened her eyes. There is healing in stillness. That quality fascinated Needle to the point that he used every occasion to give her rare and unusual species. He became quite famous among colleagues and clients for his interest in poisonous insects and reptiles. He even entertained his guests, showing off his wife's unusual talent. At that time, they moved into the 19th century flat with very high ceiling and crystal chandeliers right next to the Imperial Palace. 20 years later, she bought a doll's house from an antique shop in London, and it brought to her mind a flash from the past. The Nevsky Prospect, all freshly powdered by snow and decorated with monogram of lights, like the stage of the Mariinsky Theatre. Lighted palaces disappearing in the blizzard inside the snow globe, and slowly from her visual memory, only remaining Schubert tune learned by little Sasha, evolved into Rachmaninoff in London, and still echoing in Chicago. Black and white lovers on the photo. Medea sipping from the glass, something refreshing, and Jason looking inward and in peace. She didn't see them for many years. She was on her own, lonely journey away from home, looking for something. But there is only one golden fleece, and it meant to be found by Jason. He is going to be 90 this year, and Medea is still next to him, beautiful.
Well, Vera is an actress, I'm not, so I'm a bit nervous. It's really kind of shaky voice. And I will read in Russian. Яблоки в ее детстве имели совсем другой вкус. В стране, где она родилась, собирали урожай, начиная с раннего лета до поздней осени. Был белый налив, ранний сорт. Он наливался самым первым. Маленькие светло-зеленые плоды с листьями только что сорванные, с тонким яблочным ароматом, а многим попадались сюрпризом, живой гусеницей внутри. Гусеницы – красавицы лета. Теплыми июньскими деньками они выползали на помост в своих невероятных нарядах. Выгибая пушистые спинки, они переливались друг перед другом всеми цветами, к великому наслаждению детского любопытства. Будущее ей виделось в обратной перспективе, как в иконе. Оно исходило из солнечного сплетения огромным лучом в бесконечность. Смерть отсутствовала в этой картине мира, но похороны были. Ее влекла торжественная похоронная музыка. Она улавливала в ней какую-то печаль, еще совсем неизвестную и светлую. Как только ее ухо касалась далекая мелодия, она вместе с другими детьми мчалась со двора на звук духового оркестра и на время вливалась в процессию, которая двигалась медленно, в такт завывающих волторн и обжигающих медью ударов тарелок, в сугробах из живых цветов, которые соскальзывали и падали, а дети подбирали их, возвращаясь обратно в свой двор с трофеями. В августе зацветали астры. Трава в полях становилась сухой, звучали цикады. Кое-где отражал небесную синеву цикорий. Если лечь на живот и посмотреть через трубочку, то открывался мир непроходимых джунглей, колонии снующих муравьев, ковыляющих жуков-одиночек. Даже бабочки не могли усидеть на одном месте. Все вокруг летало, скакало, прыгало по каким-то скрытым важным делам, и только она одна обладала абсолютной свободой ничего не делания. Осенью в октябрьском монохроме сада сквозь дым костра осенних листьев просвечивали осеннее солнце антоновские яблоки. Ее зубы впивались в их крепкую, сладкокислую мякоть. Это был последний год ее детства, последний вкус уходящего рая.
The loss of a husband. Aline is a plump lady with an interesting tale, but because she is plump, she couldn't see her tail. In fact, she had no idea she had it. Obviously, everybody else did. But they didn't know she didn't know, so as a result, there was a lot of confusion in Aline's life. Her tail had an independent life, which meant she had no control over it. When Aline saw food or got excited, the tail would fluff up and would start making seductive, shaky moves. But when nothing interesting was going on in Aline's life, it would get bored and would swing around Aline's hips, so that she started to suspect something strange was going on behind her back. Then she would call friends to share her worries, and that would be hard for her friends to bear. English people don't tell embarrassing truths. So she remained in ignorance. Aline lived on the top floor of a tall Victorian building with a beautiful view. She lived alone, as she had lost her husband. The tragic and mysterious event happened on a grey day in January. Aline and her husband were choosing a grey carpet for their living room at John Lewis's. They got lost among the rich choices of grey shades which this respectable British institution provides for its customers. While comparing the shades, he got sucked in by a powerful vacuum cleaner. Aline noticed, but it was too late. She found his glasses on the subtle, grey-colored carpet just next to the hoover that had sucked him in. So she bought the carpet as a tribute to her lost husband. The surreal circumstances of his disappearance left Aline isolated behind a wall of disbelief. Never mind her arrest by the police on suspicion of a murder. The case hit the papers and the news. Everybody was trying to guess whether she was really a murderer, a fantasist, or a schizophrenic. At the end, she couldn't tell the difference herself, and at the point, people started to notice her tail. At her local cafe, where she squeezed between the tables to grab a free seat, her tail would knock off people's drinks. And that would create such a mess and hassle of clearing up and apologizing that it only encouraged the tail to infuriate the customers even more by dipping its tip into people's mugs of coffee. To end the kerfuffle, the manager would often offer Aline any coffee she wanted on the house to take away. She appreciated the attention and generosity, but with mixed feelings. Sometimes, when waiting for a bus, Aline's mind would take a wrong direction and start replaying the events of that ill-fated day at John Lewis's. Then the bored tail would start stroking other people at the bus stop. Most people would move off to a safe distance, but some individuals enjoyed this strange experience and stayed closer to Aline. But the worst was at dinner parties. When sitting next to a male guest, her tail would curl up comfortably on the lap under the table, while Aline was engaged in a lively conversation with her neighbor, who was left speechless. She would put this reaction down to her personality, and with an elegant gesture, she would pass him a discreetly perfumed scrap of paper with her phone number scribbled on it. but he would never call. Eventually, she'd had enough. One morning, still in bed with a cup of coffee, she was surfing the globe of her computer. On the screen, she recognized a picture: the sea, the sun, the sand. It was exactly the scene her therapist had asked her to imagine when he was getting her to relax, and that impelled Aline to reach out for this heaven of peace. She took out her card and typed in the number. A few seconds later, it was confirmed. She didn't need to imagine the picture in the therapy room anymore. The place was real, and she was going to fly in. At last, after months of British gloom, she saw the sun above the clouds. On her arrival, warm air embraced her. She breathed in the tropical fragrance and made her way to passport control. The immigration officer asked the usual questions and stamped her passport. But when she stepped out, she was stopped by the security and asked about the tail, which didn't match any nationality description. That was the first time Aline came to know about the tail. She was refused an entry visa and was sent back home on the same plane on the same day. On her return, she made an appointment with her therapist. As Aline stepped into the therapy room, the dam burst. It seems she had absorbed the moisture of the heavens while she was traveling in the air, and now flooded the therapy room with tears. With feet wet from the floor, the therapist tried to send out empathetic vibes. How is it possible? After so many sessions and a fortune spent, I had no idea about the tail, Aline cried. The therapist explained that with the established boundaries of his profession, it is only possible to discuss what the client brings to a session. And since Aline never mentioned her tail, it had never been discussed. Besides, Aline should not let the tail undermine the good work they've done over the years. He reminded her that the opinions of others are merely a projection of their own insecurities. By that time, Aline felt like throwing her glass of water at him. But the session was over and she had to leave. She blamed the Hoover. So she wrote a letter to John Lewis and demanded an explanation. The reply said, "Dear Aline, we are very sorry for your loss and the distress it has caused you. We would like to reassure you that the vacuum cleaner involved in the incident was removed by the police from the showroom and sent off for investigation. The results of the investigation have showed no indication of culpability by the vacuum cleaner, as it is incapable of sucking in large objects, such as husband. As you are a valued customer, however, we would like to offer you some compensation. We therefore enclose 300 pounds worth of vouchers as a goodwill gesture. With the best wishes, John Lewis." Aline's health was deteriorating rapidly. She started hearing voices and tried to ignore them, but soon she started receiving text messages from one of the voices that had been talking to her. This in itself would have freaked her out, but the message was simple, short and reassuring. One morning, she woke up in her room. The sun was up, the room was bright, and she let go of her long, disturbed mind. Lying in bed with a cup of coffee, Aline started thinking about the voice that had been talking to her for the last couple of months. And out of control, her mind drew a picture of a very handsome man, well-built, well-mannered, interesting, and in love with Aline. She experienced a pleasant wave of joy, so she gave him the name Jonathan and a job as a lecturer in classical literature. Then she imagined the scent of his cologne, just like his voice, deep, velvety, with a little musky touch. Her internal engine suddenly filled up with water, oil and petrol, and key was turned, and coffee noises started to come out, showing it was still alive. Aline finished her coffee, got out of bed and looked in the mirror. She looked one size smaller and 1 inch taller. Her eyes were bright and her tail was gone. She wanted to call her therapist and tell him about it, but suddenly she was interrupted by an unexpected and very insistent ring on her doorbell.
Под красным козырьком сидели спиной друг к другу сама хозяйка, просматривая газету, элегантный моложавый старикан и мужчина лет 45 с восточной привлекательной внешностью. День был не солнечный, но жаркий, а улицы пустынны, как обычно пустеют в августе столицы Европы. Она наслаждалась тишиной и неподвижностью бытия. Особенно ее занимал разглядывать мужчину, сидящего напротив. Он был коротко пострижен, и темные волосы слегка серебрились. Он что-то писал на телефоне. У него были красивые губы, крупные, четко очерченные и двухдневная небритость. Она так увлеклась, что уже смотрела на него не украдкой, а почти представляла, как он целует. Вдруг он оторвался от телефона и в упор посмотрел на нее. На минуту ей показалось, он читает ее мысли, и она нарочно не отвела взгляд. Он улыбнулся, и они продолжали какое-то время молчаливый диалог. Потом кончился кофе. Потом она долго гуляла одна по улицам, потом вернулась домой, разделась, легла в постель. Проснулся муж и, ничего не спрашивая, взобрался на нее и, как заботливый дятел, принялся старательно долбить неподвижное тело, а она лежала в темноте с открытыми глазами, не отрываясь от взгляда незнакомого мужчины из кафе.
It was stormy for 2 days, and the waves were enormous. When they break into a froth of oxygen bubbles, and the bubbles break on your skin, you feel like a strawberry in champagne. The waves were growing big, like a gigantic glassmaker was blowing them from the bottom of the sea. They looked like molten glass, swollen and round. As they get closer to the shore, growing bigger and bigger, the sun hits them, and everything inside the wave became transparent. Ginormous tuna fish caught in the wave sparkles for a second before the wave hits the shore, and the fish disappear in the glitter of the sand. Apparently, the most sensual organ of the body is the skin. It becomes alive in the warm waters of the sea. The sea bathes every cell, equally caressing every square inch of your body, and under the moonlight, the velvet cover of the Spanish night gently embraces you. The feasts of the Mediterranean seafood haven't changed since Roman times. The restaurants are heaving, and the mountains of shell from the feast will be discovered in the 1,000 years by future generations. That will be all they know about this wonderful night. The meaning, the feeling will be gone with us. Just as we consume the mollusks, time will consume every one of us. The feeling and emotion will all be gone. Only the mountains of shells will be left on the Tarragona shore.
Из телефонной трубки доносились страшные рубящие звуки. Она рубила овощи на маленькой кухне. Вошел сын, щелкнул выключатель. Ее ярко-красные волосы вспыхнули под электрической лампочкой. Что-то забубнил глубоким баритоном на непонятном языке. «Есть просит», — сказала она. Есть просили все. Старая черепаха, живущая целую вечность в темноте под ванной. Старая кошка со скверным характером и дурным голосом, выговаривая ей про свою несчастную одинокую жизнь. Даже когда она приобрела для кошки компанию, чудесного серого котенка получила взамен презрение и бесконечную свару за территорию. Только цветы, за которыми она нежно ухаживала, казались самыми благодарными. Она с ними тоже разговаривала, поливая и аккуратно пропалывая. Они росли на балконе многоэтажки, куда ее забросила жизнь много лет назад, на 9-й этаж чужого города. Здесь она родила сына и растила его, кормила с особой любовью. Притаскивала домой огромные сумки на колесах, наполненные снедью, и начинался магический ритуал превращения еды в целебное варево зелье. Тогда даже сварливая кошка не решалась заходить на кухню. Какие-то никому неизвестные пещерные знания открывались ей, когда она уходила в лес и бродила целый день одна, возвращаясь с грибами, кореньями и какими-то травами. Город она не понимала, он пугал ее, казался ей неорганичным, чужим. Она и знала-то его не очень, только свою многоэтажку да несколько тропок, одна из которых вела в лес, такой похожий на ее далекий, дремучий родной. С телефонной трубкой, прижатой к уху, выслушивая бесконечные жалобы больной подруги, не прекращая рубить овощи, она вдруг услышала позади себя знакомый баритон и обернулась. Сын стоял в дверном проеме кухни, обернутый в полотенце после душа. На его теле еще не высохли капли. Она вдруг вспомнила последнюю единственную поездку в Италию, еще до его рождения, и огромный зал с куполом, и возвышающуюся над ней божественную форму Микеланджело. Она смотрела на сына и не понимала, какие силы превратили плачущий кулечек, который она принесла много лет назад в свою многоэтажку, в божественную форму в дверном проеме ее кухни.
Every woman has a friend's husband who always gives a slightly more than friendly hug goodbye after a dinner party. His forever faintly said expression is of a person who hasn't experienced love for a long time and has been forgotten and pushed out to the edge of family life by his offspring. This is the man to go to in the moment of weakness and despair of abandonment, when you're reaching out for a soulmate who feels the same, but don't get carried away, because the misery of his marriage that he was sharing with you, in fact, is a happy misery. Yes, they've been happily miserable for 38 years and still going strong. So, my next decision was to go on a dating site. I just registered for a month to see what my options would be on the free market. I started receiving messages 3.5 minutes after I registered. The range of men was from 30 to 65. The 65 turned out to be 10 years older. They have so enjoyed the last 10 years here that they forgot time flies and they have to take their picture. Some of them have passed away, but continue to live on this dating universe forever. Sometimes I thought that 30 years old men who contacted me must have confused the dating site for an adoption agency. But the confusion was mine. They were very clear what they're looking for. The computer screen scrolls up and down, endless, anonymous faces, both young and old, all desperately intimidating. At the end of the month, I panicked in desperation to get out of those murky waters where fat old carp flirt in the depths, only coming to life on the arrival of a new drowned soul. Then they fight for attention to feed their ever-hungry egos before they sink back into the gloomy depths until their next feed. And if you don't get out in time, the system will start recycling you over and over again.
Когда что-то шло не так, она всегда винила себя. Так научила ее старшая сестра. Разница в возрасте у них была велика, и ей хотелось, чтобы все думали, что это она, ее красивая молодая мама, а не настоящая мать, которая все время была занята вечными делами, всякими недугами, а вскоре и вовсе умерла. Гроб вынесли на улицу с открытой крышкой. Сбежалось много народу, даже соседские дети с любопытством болтались вокруг. Все суетились, выла бабка, а она смотрела на все происходящее, как будто оно не имело к ней никакого отношения. После похорон по дому ходили незнакомые люди, что-то ели, пили. Добрая подруга матери кормила ее супом и при этом грустными глазами и жалостной улыбкой поглядывала на нее, но так и не смогла заговорить. В начале зимы почти неношенное материнское пальто на ботине из толстого драпа бабка велела подогнать под ее 12-летнюю фигуру и, взвалив на плечи, заставила носить. А потом понеслись дни, выпускные экзамены, новые города, увлечения, браки, разводы. И никто никогда ничего не объяснял и ни о чем не спрашивал.
You replied by email. It sounds like you are having a terrible time and I'm really sorry to hear it. There isn't much I can do from here, but I'm due back in London tomorrow morning, Tuesday 29th of December 2015. Let me get home, go to the supermarket, have breakfast, maybe sleep a little, and then I'll call you. His plane took off from Delhi airport to make an overnight flight to London. It was slowly drifting through the night on high altitude and high speed, so peaceful in the clear sky lit by the stars, and the steady sound of the engines sent me off to sleep. And that was like the beginning of a new dream. Angel translates from Hebrew as messenger. So I was dreaming of an angel Jacob flying over from India with the divine message for me, an answer to all my questions, the end to all my confusions, even the end of the story. Jet-lagged and exhausted with the cold, Jacob hosted me. His home has layers upon layers of the years he's lived there, maybe 20 or 30 layers. Nothing seems to be removed or revisited. I was sitting on the chair opposite him, watching how the smoke from the fireplace mixed with the fumes of hashish, sending him off from the room back to the high altitude, leaving me alone with no messages. And again, the excruciating pain of letting go false expectations triggered a panic attack. I took my Valium and left. The fresh air cleared my lungs. The number 12 bus picked me up and in 40 minutes brought me back to Earth, to a festive Oxford Street with Christmas lights and jolly windows offering 50% discount.
Сегодня приходила осень, напомнить о себе. День был еще жаркий, и люди избегали сидеть на солнечной стороне кафе, теснились под зонтиками. В летних шортах прогуливались молодые люди, разглядывая витрины, а на самом деле украдкой любуясь своими отражениями. На площади французская ярмарка соблазняла жителей деликатесами из Прованса, свежими оливками, чесноком, паштетами. Они шли в ногу быстрым шагом, довольные и страшно голодные. Выбор был велик, и они какое-то время не могли решить, куда зайти. Тарелка с аппетитным содержимым, который уплетал какой-то посетитель, решила их выбор. Они сразу заказали по большому черному кофе без сахара и стали рассматривать меню. Она заказала поджаренный ржаной хлеб и авокадо с кусочками лимона, а ему принесли хрустящий бекон, глазунью, жареные помидоры и грибы. Соломенная шляпа перекрывала его глаза, но зато ей был виден крупный нос, коротко постриженные волосы и уши. Она пила ароматный кофе и следила, как он с аппетитом ест завтрак. А всего час назад он, как настройщик органа, осторожно и медленно извлекал из нее звуки, и она не издала ни одной фальшивой ноты. Он съел все до последней крошки, заказал еще кофе и стал просматривать газету. Вокруг суетилась жизнь, у французов бойко шла торговля, она тоже прихватила с собой корзинку для покупок. Кофе был допит, он отложил газету, и вдруг какой-то незнакомый ужас охватил ее. Она вдруг почувствовала, что пришла осень, и этот прекрасный солнечный день всего лишь случайная радость. Он встал, и они пошли по направлению к парку. Еще нетронутая желтизной зелень поглотила их. Они дошли до места, где открывался вид на город. Внизу перед ними на ладони, как на ладони, растянулся залитый низким осенним солнцем невозмутимый Лондон. Она вспомнила, какой необыкновенной бывает золотая осень, и страх юрким пушистым зверьком отпрыгнул от нее и растворился в природе.
Colin was a whale, but he didn't know that. He was trying to walk among the people and be like them. He warned me, I'm different. Every time we met, I could see him coming from very far away. It was easy to spot the whale among the people. First, he was very big, and second, he was moving like a whale, heavy out of water. I think he missed the ocean a lot. Sometimes, when I talk to him about it, he gets very sad, because he knows the ocean is too far away, and for a whale it would be impossible to get there by land on his own. I was too small for him in my little boat. He wanted to meet another whale. His slightest move would rock my boat so badly that I was never sure I would survive or drown. I was drifting further and further away from him, because even in the water he didn't know he was a whale, and seemed so helpless and so unsure and confused. He was calling for other whales. I would balance in my little boat around him, I could only see one eye at a time. I had to sail all around him, around his face, to see the other one. And while I was making this journey from eye to eye, he couldn't see me at all. And that meant that for him I didn't exist. In my little boat, I looked like a tear under the whale's eye, a drop in the ocean.
Они промучились всю ночь. Она изо всех сил старалась и выбирала самые соблазнительные позы из глянцевых обложек, которые вертелись в памяти. Но ничего не получалось. Плоть не слушалась его. Она выдохлась, хотела спать, а он продолжал удерживать ее в полусне, не выдергивал и не отпускал. Он предложил ей остаться, когда все расходились. Весь вечер сидел один в темном углу гостиной, курил и смотрел в упор на ее плавающие в полумраке руки и ноги, как будто она двигалась под водой. Она танцевала, томно покачиваясь, зажмурив глаза в своем желтом платье, и много смеялась. Ее веселило вино. Она чувствовала, как его взгляд, как свет прожектора отделил ее от пляшущей компании других молодых людей, и она танцует только она для него в центре комнаты в желтом летнем платье. Хмель проходил, приходила усталость. Она подошла и по-хозяйски уселась к нему на колени и стала что-то шептать ему на ухо. Слова не доходили до его сознания, только звуки. Т нежными войлочными молоточками тукал его по ушным перепонкам, а желеша шуршала по коже, камышом и осокой. Ее длинные темные волосы растрепались, он чувствовал их запах, ему казалось, они пахнут солнцем и полынью. Ночь закончилась неожиданно. По дороге домой через весь город она никак не могла влиться в будничную рутину просыпающегося мегаполиса. Казалось, там, в той комнате, она то ли оставила, то ли приобрела какой-то новый сегмент себя. Больше они никогда не виделись.
My father died at 93. He was eager to get to his 90th birthday. He'd lived through every disaster of the 20th century and survived. He made it to his 90s. And after that, he became indifferent and died at 93 in a nursing home. I went to see him after he had a stroke. He recognized me and waved hello. He'd stopped talking. 90 is long enough to say everything one wants to say, and for 3 years he remained silent. Once in April, he was resting in the garden looking at the new blossom on the cherry trees, and suddenly he asked, "Have I died?" 2 years later, he did. He was born in 1919 in Crimea, Russia, in the middle of the great slaughter of a civil war. Everyone was trying to escape from the hell. So his family joined a small Jewish convoy heading north to safety. A group of horsemen stopped the convoy in the middle of the Ukrainian steppe. They asked for money, gold and silver. The frightened people hesitated. Then a horseman grabbed a young woman's firstborn child and promised to slice him in half if the Jews didn't pay up. That's how my father was granted his life.
Первый укол любви она испытала к двоюродному брату матери, гостившему летом у них на даче. Сначала пришла телеграмма, сообщавшая о его приезде, и все в доме переполошились. Говорили о нем и мама, и бабушка, о том, как он, наверное, вырос, какой он был милый ребенок, готовили для него комнату в кабинете отца и придумывали на ходу меню для ужина. Она ходила за ними следом со своей любимой куклой, не совсем понимая детали разговора, но все больше проникаясь праздничным возбуждением внезапно возникшей суеты. До вечера она нетерпеливо бегала из дома в сад, но гостя так и не дождалась. И только в постели сквозь сон до нее доносились голоса и смех, и еще другие домашние звуки, посуды, шагов, вперемешку с тиканьем часов в ее комнате. Утром ее причесывала бабушка, мамина мама. Заплетала тугие косички и рассказывала про своего внучатого племянника, какой он стал красивый и умный, и что она тоже, не моргнешь глазом, скоро вырастет. Потом ее нарядили для случая в новое летнее платье и вывели в гостиную. Она так долго ждала его накануне, и так много о нем слышала, и так была разочарована увиденным, что неожиданно громко расплакалась. В столовой за столом сидел совершенно обыкновенный незнакомый человек, и совершенно обыкновенно поедал тост с беконом, приветливо улыбаясь, когда она вошла. Плач перешел в рев. Смущенная мама растерянно утешала ребенка, бабушка по привычке принялась стыдить. Вдруг гость, встав из-за стола, подошел и, присев на корточки, представился. От неожиданности она перестала орать. Ее огромные темно-зеленые глаза струили стеклярусные потоки, но в них уже светилось любопытство. Он смотрел серьезно и внимательно, и она, выйдя из укрытия, подала ему руку. Он играл с ней до самого вечера. И она в свои 5 лет испытала первую радость любви в покорного великана, катавшего ее верхом, бегущего с ней на перегонки, подхватывающего ее, подбрасывающего вверх под небеса под кроны яблонь. Она испытала восторг от счастья быть найденной в самых укромных уголках дома и от созерцания цветных картинок, сидя рядом. Радость прервала мать. Шумно вошла в гостиную, сгребла ее и унесла спать, несмотря на горячие слезы отчаяния.
He'd been a lacquer box, inlaid with turtle shell in copper. He looked like it was made by the master craftsman André Charles Ballet. Some bits were missing, but the general feeling was of something grandiose. It was quite mind-blowing suddenly to become a possessor of this rare thing, and it felt so overwhelming to keep and care for it. I chose a place for him that was quite safe, but when I could see him from any part of the room at any time. It was such a joy to introduce it to my friends. I couldn't take my eyes off my box. Even when his body was entangled with mine, my eyes would still be glued to the shelf where it stands, anticipating my desire to discover its contents. I started gently taking it off the shelf and studying it, looking at every detail, getting to know it, all the imperfections, scrubs, scratchers, chips. Some bits were missing from the ornamentation, but on the whole it was exquisite and dear and precious, even though it wasn't new. The more I looked, the more I became fascinatedly curious about its contents. But it was locked. It didn't matter at all at first. You have the box, so you have whatever the box contains. One day I made my first attempt to open it. Overwhelmed with excitement, I took the box and gently turned the key. But it wouldn't turn. I tried again, with a little more effort, but no, it didn't give. In surprise and disbelief, I decided to be patient and give it some more thought. But days passed and weeks and years, and increasingly looking at it wasn't enough. I wanted to see inside. Frustration turned into obsession. I became determined. I tried a screwdriver, a knife, a scissors. I broke my teeth on it, but still it wouldn't give. I hammered him again and again. All my friends and neighbors tried to save me, but it was too late. I squashed all the decoration and cracked open the box, only to discover it was solid wood. It was solid wood with no inside. It was too much for him to bear, so he left.
Это очень маленький такой несколько строк, но это посвящено матери художника Леонида Симоновского, с которым я познакомилась в Петербурге. И он один из немногих, который выжил в Могилевском гетто. И это посвящено его матери. Она будила его до рассвета, сонного одевала, кормила чем могла и, стараясь не споткнуться о спящих на полу, выводила во двор. Отец не выходил, не хватало мужества. А она отрывала щуплое, цепляющееся тельце, разворачивала и, приказав до ночи не возвращаться, толкала в темноту. Он шел на ходу, оглядываясь, запоминая, как ее медленно поглощала тьма. Сначала исчезало лицо, потом машущая вслед рука. Потом она превращалась в путевой столбик, в точку, в пустоту. Он уже старик, но почти все его акварели про разные состояния одного и того же пейзажа, в который она вытолкнула его 6-летнего ранним морозным утром, чтобы спасти и уже никогда не увидеть.
Uncle Toby had never left his cradle. On the day I was born, he converted the old Victorian family house into a fortress on top of our flat and we never saw him again. My parents met far away at the time when the iron walls and curtains were falling. They met in a grubby kitchen in the most beautiful city in the world, and for 6 weeks the sun didn't leave the sky. 2 years later, I was born. I was dropped from my mother's womb into my father's arm, and that was the biggest moment of his life, as he said. In our flat under the Toby's castle, we were visited by Laura. Nobody knew exactly who Laura was, but when she came, the sound of tinkling bells would follow her around. So I think she was a fairy. My dad didn't believe in magic, nor in the golden glitter she would scatter on us, but we always needed the money. When she died, Uncle Toby wept a lot, so I think she must have been his mother. I loved Laura. She used to take me to visit her old friend Tom, who lived under the roots of an old tree next to Kentish Town Station. I loved to play and explore the dark corners of Tom's home. It was full of abandoned things from their high street, all swept down by the wind or by the dustman or by streams of rainwater straight into Tom's cave. There were so much stuff in there, strange, old, useless, long forgotten by the people endlessly shopping on the streets above Tom's cave. My mother, a giant squirrel, was very worried about the weight above. She was running up and down the walls, brushing off the dust from the crashing ceiling with her enormous fluffy tail. My dad, a magnificent elk, couldn't take the pressure. Like any elk, he would be scared away by the tiniest little noise into his study. That's what we all thought. But behind the doors, he was hiding from us his real world, the wilderness and the cold air of a great forest. He would wander around there for hours and hours, indulging in solitude and silence, feeding on the magic mushrooms and moss. My mother always wondered how so much mud was out. My mother always wondered how so much mud came out of his study. After Laura died, the flat became scary silent. Very often, I would be woken up in the middle of the night by a subtle sound of tinkling bells, hoping she was walking down the corridor, but realizing it was only a dream. My father never returned from his forest, and Mother said that it wasn't my fault. There is just something seriously wrong with the structure of the house.
This is the first story I wrote in Russian, so that's a very special story for me, and I will read it in Russian. Как только он открыл глаза, тут же получил удар в челюсть от серого мутного дня. Она проснулась раньше и, сидя рядом с ним в постели, перелистывала всякие глупости, совершенно не замечая избиения. Превозмогая боль, он с трудом вставал, просовывал руки в обветшалый халат, который она подарила ему на Рождество много лет назад, и плелся наверх, чтобы сварить кофе. Старый лабрадор плелся за ним и терпеливо ждал. Он не любил запаха кофе, но он знал, что через 10 минут этот запах станет частью утреннего ритуала, когда ему позволят лежать, развалившись поверх одеял, и принимать нежнейшие ласки этих странных двух существ, пьющих кофе в одной постели. Когда-то они обращали эти ласки друг к другу. Тогда ночь незаметно превращалась в день, день сменялся ночью, а они не замечали. Она оберегала его от невзгод, теплом своего присутствия и ровным дыханием во сне. Иногда они засыпали, и его начинал мучить один и тот же сон. Ему снилось, что он в огромном многоэтажном здании, и везде люди. Они постоянно движутся. Вверх, вниз, во всех направлениях, на бесчисленных эскалаторах, лифтах и лестницах, иногда сталкиваясь друг с другом на какое-то время, пытаясь остановить движение, чтобы остаться вместе. Но это движение невозможно было остановить. Первый раз он увидел ее на эскалаторе, когда она медленно проплывала мимо. Он коснулся ее руки, и их взгляды встретились. Чтобы продлить этот момент, им пришлось обоим долго идти против движения. Когда он почувствовал изнеможение от усталости, он проснулся. К этому времени они уже были женаты, кажется, 5 или 7 лет. Именно тогда он заметил пустое пространство между ними. Оно было всегда, и на самом деле это было главным условием при выборе их первого совместного приобретения. Кровати, старинные деревянные конструкции, больше похожие на ковчег.
But I never knew what it meant. My scary and miserable grandmother spoke Yiddish, and I was bullied for it at school. But I left my hometown and left the embarrassment behind. Only many years later, in another part of the world, was I struck again by the tune of my childhood, a sound of prayer, a collective effort to channel a powerful stream of love and devotion, resonated with my soul. It was the sound of a dream that evaporates as soon as you try to hold on to it. Then I started coming to synagogue again and again, to listen to the rabbi's voice like I was trying to remember the dream, but it was lost forever. On Shabbos Eve, I left Brandenburg Square, filled with young and angry protesters brandishing Syrian flag. History never stops repeating itself. A story from another Bible, the New Testament, the story of the Madonna and Child, another parallel and crossing of life and culture and religion. That was Berlin.
От огромных валунов, поросших мхом, поднимался туман. Он заволакивал плоский пейзаж до самого горизонта. По другую сторону, у подножия холма, усыпанного овцами, сквозь жидкое молоко, просвечивал каменный дом старой фермы. В интерьере дома, слинявший, вечно холодный, с ледяными простынями по ночам. В доме говорили редко, только по делу, про скот, про корм и про окот. Когда отца разбила болезнь, он стал уходить на далекие пастбища вместо него. Смотрел за стадом, руками, измазанными в крови, вытаскивал за ноги застрявших в утробе ягнят, спал на земле за валунами под навесом. Его одинокие бурные извержения плоти пугали овец, и они кричали в темноте, как женщины. После окота он пригонял стадо в загон возле дома и уходил за 10 миль в деревенскую пивнушку. Молчаливо пил в одиночестве, и иногда также молчаливо и одиноко совокуплялся в отхожем месте. Потом пьяный плелся домой, а утром над валунами опять поднимался густой туман до самого горизонта.
In 1992, St. Petersburg International Airport hardly existed. The city had only just reclaimed his original name and was at the beginning of its international fame. Russia, like a sleeping beauty, was waiting to be woken up to a fairy tale wedding with the West. The dowry and the novelty promised a happy marriage, but it soon turned into a cold winter. The air is thick, like vodka from the freezer. Breathing in the cold liquid hurts your lungs. The morning emphasizes the blue and dissolves the yellow from last night. People in their heavy coats, like butterflies locked in their cocoons, tread through the snow in slow motion, passing the shimmering patterns of tropical gardens created by frost on the windows and a dream. We were driving along Moskovsky Prospect, passing the enormous statue of Lenin pointing his arm towards the bright future. But in 1950s, Soviet Baroque building blocked the view. So instead, he was pointing straight into the bedroom window where the 20-year-old young woman sitting next to me in the taxi was conceived. Who knows how many consummations have been inspired by this statue in the last 20 years. But now it was me pointing for my daughter at his grotesque figure that looked more like a Cossack dancer in a winter coat with a hat of snow on top of his gigantic granite head. The Nevsky Prospect was all freshly powdered by snow and decorated with an imperial monogram of lights. I could hear the roar of Tsar Godunov on the stage of the Mariinsky Theatre. St. Petersburg. At night, the littered palaces disappear in a blizzard as the snow globe gets shaken up by memories.
Утро разбелил ультрамарин уходящей ночи, и комната из загадочной темноты, где все узнавалось на ощупь, превратилась в бледный призрак остывшей страсти. Небрежно скомканное белье больше напоминало сорванные бинты с голубовато-серых тел. Она открыла глаза и начала поспешно собираться. Среди кучи одежды, разбросанной на полу, она выуживала то лифчик, то чулок, натягивала на себя найденное, не оглядываясь на кровать, стараясь поскорее спрятать наготу, а вместе с ней и стыд, и сожаление. Он наблюдал за ней кратко, притворившись спящим. День набирал силу, и от таинственности прошлой ночи оставил только маленькую тень, но она уже успела одеться, и в одежде присела на кровать. Через прорехи простыней выглядывали его масластые крепкие колени. Она хотела что-то сказать, но не находила слов. Наконец она принялась извиняться за неоправданный порыв и непростительную ошибку. Она говорила взволнованно и искренне. Она пыталась объяснить, что она запуталась и не заметила, что из ее жизни исчезли 20 лет, что она их не помнит. И она понимает, что это непростительно и унизительно, и, возможно, он осуждает ее, а может быть, теперь при свете дня и презирает, и она презирает себя, ведь он 3 годами старше ее сына. Она раскаивалась, и его молчание и неподвижное тело еще больше распаляли ее отчаяние. Он слушал молча. Ее голос грудной и страстный звучал, как музыкальное соло. В комнате, залитой солнечным светом, она уже не могла ничего ни скрыть, ни спрятать. Не открывая глаз и не пошевелясь ни разу, он взял ее за щиколотку и очень тихо попросил раздеться. Я хочу еще один маленький рассказ прочитать на русском. Just one last story. Она провела за рулем своего старенького Ситроэна уже 4 часа. Дождь наконец перестал, и неожиданно, прорвав седину небес, вспыхнуло солнце, ударило по амальгаме мокрой дороги и ослепило ее в упор. Она испытала острую боль от такого неожиданно яркого света и зажмурилась на секунду. И тут же сильный толчок отбросил ее сначала назад, потом вперед, потом все закружилось, и сквозь вату, заложившую ей уши, она услышала голос матери, зовущей ее домой ужинать. Голос был молодой, сильный. Она увидела красивую женщину, которой принадлежал голос, и с удивлением подумала, что никогда прежде не видела мать такой молодой. Какой-то незнакомый мужик, сидя рядом с ней, ощипывал, держа за ноги, живую курицу, а перья засовывал к себе в рот. Она почему-то почувствовала перья у себя в гортани, ей стало трудно дышать. Она пыталась позвать на помощь, но крик обезумевшей курицы и хлопанье крыльев заглушили ее зов. Белые ажурные занавески упали на лицо. Их свежий от мороза запах холодного металла осел во рту. Она пыталась стянуть белое кружево, но оно все не кончалось. В окне, освещенном электрическим светом, она опять увидела красивую незнакомую женщину. «Это же ты, милая!» — услышала она опять голос матери. Вокруг нее суетились люди, выли сирены. Она лежала на траве на обочине, у нее на лице была надета кислородная маска. Парамедик увидел ее, укладывая ее на носилки, увидел, что она открыла глаза и, улыбнувшись, произнес «You're so lucky». Когда ее несли к машине скорой помощи, она краем глаза увидела остатки своего Ситроэна и ужаснулась. Ей сделали инъекцию, боль отпустила. Но слова матери волнами повторялись в мозгу. Она поняла, что ей только что был подарен второй шанс. I just suddenly felt I don't want to repeat myself, but I think it's when you go to the woods picking mushrooms, you don't see the berries. When you picking berries, you don't see the mushrooms. I think with writing in different languages is the same thing. It's what your brain tuned on.
Wow.
I think.
You started in English as far as
I started writing in English.
Was it because you could overcome certain psychological problems just by starting in a foreign language? Like we feel sometimes more free when we don't know it, when we just like children starting from scratch.
I don't know. I mean, it's sometimes when you write, it's not like you're writing. It's kind of you're writing down. It's kind of well, all the stories in English and in Russian, it's real stories about real people. I don't make anything up, and I don't think I can. I can only describe. I can't make it up.
So not about yourself, about your.
I think everything is possible. You can't say it's exactly about me or exactly about something. It's kind of it's creative process, you know. It's kind of like chemistry. It's something boiling up into something. When you cook, you put lots of stuff and something coming up. I don't know.
So was it John Lewis whose story real?
Yeah, it's kind of a real story. I have a friend who told me that her husband left, and she was very surprised. And I said, "Didn't you suspect?" And she said, "No, we were choosing carpet for the living room." And then he just suddenly gone, and I thought, where did he gone? So I thought he must have been sucked in by the hooker. That was my explanation, but you may not like my explanation, but it's a true story. He just gone. Where did he go?
And what is about a tale?
There are many ways to go.
Tale, I think tale is kind of your other side of your personality, you're not aware of. Like people acting and everybody thinks, oh, she's crazy, but she doesn't know she is. So this is the tale.
Yeah.
Мама еще жива? Она английском тоже такие маленькие рассказы?
Да, книжка.
How many books are already published?
Me? You're joking. It's only one book was published in English.
Oh,
That's
so it's
it.
the first
really,
one.
I'm not really a writer.
You are really a writer who doesn't know it yet.
Нет.
Просыпаешься в один день, начинаешь писать.
Я думаю, что это было определенное состояние, в котором я находилась. Но я думаю, что человек не может просто кем-то вдруг стать. Я думаю, что он был. Он просто не проявлял, а потом проявил. Так что прислушивайтесь к себе.
А это такое чувство, что кто-то диктует, или вы просто садитесь и придумываете? Или вы откуда-то получаете?
Я думаю, что
Should we? Are there some English people who don't translate? Sorry. Then I'll translate.
I think everybody speaks English. So
Then I just asked whether she these imaginary stories, whether she's feeling like they are dictated by something,
Yes.
or is she just inventing them from just sitting?
Thank you.
it's like with the story with the husband who just got lost. So you talk to people and they say something and you think, how's it happened? So you think, yeah, that's how it happened, because he was sucked in by the hoover. Or like from my daughter's diary, for example, like yeah, the mother was running around up and down trying to clean the dust, trying to keep the ceiling, and she was a squirrel and she had this fluffy tail, like she was like running down. And the father was a magnificent elk who would go into his study, and that's what everybody thought, but he would like walk in the wandering kind of cold air, eating off the magic mushrooms and da-da-da. And she was always wondering, why is it so much mud? But mud, what is mud? I mean, there was some mud, you know, it wasn't like, it was some mud. But how people understand, it's up to them.
What
I
question?
think there is everything going on in your unconsciousness, and I think unconsciousness is like wilderness in every person. And if you are aware or you tune in, it comes. Because people say, I don't write, I write it down. But who dictating? I mean, if you believe in divine, so maybe. But I think there is something in your unconsciousness which dictates you, which you bring it into the consciousness and you write it down. I think this is the process of creativity, basically.
После 40 у женщины открывается третий глаз.
Yeah, exactly.
Но вам счастье, что у вас приходят вот такие. Вот у меня ночью приходили тексты, но они были как бы из большого романа. И так как я лентяйка, я просыпалась, думаю, что мне такой роман писать? Ну, чисто шла глава, а у вас такой емкий в одном маленьком тексте, как бы вся история. Думаю, ну, что мне писать романы? Вот приходила.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, some of my friends suggested that I will write bigger stories, but even in the I mean, you take War and Peace, and you can actually describe what has happened in like very short thing. You know, you can write like a big novel, but really the story is very short. The real story is very, very short. Yeah.
Can I ask you, but do you think differently when you write in English in comparison to Russian? Because you have a very distinctive style, especially in both actually languages. But so you use certain words where you use comparison. But when you write in different languages, is it different or is it the same?
Well, as I said, when you think in the language, I think language change your personality. Like my daughter, for example, she's bilingual, and she learned Russian when she was 5 years old. So when she speaks Russian, she's very cute, sweet, 5 years old, even she's almost 23. But when she speaks English, she's quite like, oh my god, scary. So it's like two different personalities. And
So please wave.
no, I don't want to. It's anonymous.
Emotional more in Russia you feel.
Emotion is my emotions. You can express them in painting, and painting is not Russian or English. It's kind of like creativity is a universal language, I think. And yes, the language has specific things. I mean, I can be more manipulative with words in Russian because I'm Russian speaking, native Russian speaking. But the emotions is, I think I try not to describe emotions in the story. I would rather get it as a reaction from people who listen. So sometimes I kind of purposely make it, sometimes purposely I'm talking about something emotional but without emotions. And Colin, in psychotherapy, this kind of things like you react for your client, you help the client with emotions. I don't know how to say that, but yeah, I am trying to be kind of like and get emotions from the reader rather than express emotions.
Do you think that your humor, your Russian humor, you use a lot of Russian humor in English language as well? For me, it's kind of Russian humor. It's probably really no.
Well, some people think I don't have a sense of humor.
It's true, you do. It's a lot. But I think it's funny. It's funny rather than somebody told me it's so black. I cannot really read it to the end. One of your friends. I stayed. I don't tell you who. But they are not really so black. Because they are so funny. Even though they are sad, but they are funny. But it's kind of Russian humor. How do English public react to this?
Ask the English public.
No, I mean you were performing it in an English theater with English public.
Yeah, Vera
How was that reaction?
did. I think it was a good reaction, and the publisher and the editor of the English book was English, and the publisher David Wheeler, he really liked them, and Daniel Jacobs, who our editor, he was very he practically hasn't changed anything. He was so incredible. He would change to, you know, just a little bit slightly, not, I mean, English people can tell that it's not written by an English person. It's not like, yeah. Sure.
Interesting though, when I read it, it made me think of, I can't remember which Beatles album it is.
Sorry?
There's a Beatles album, isn't there?
Beatles.
I mean, I'm old enough, you probably don't know what I'm on about.
Beatles.
But there's a Beatles album, well, a couple of them, where they, you know, and the Walrus and all that stuff, where they use kind of metaphors which are, you know, a bit like the whale and things like that, and the Hoover. So that was, if I was trying to put it into a sense of humour, it would be that kind of little putting it. I might be a bit abstract here.
You're
So
up, girl.
I could have therapy issues myself, but you know, it's not that. No, but that's what made me think.
Thank you.
It is interesting you said about how people react, and I found that if something is touching audience, they always react. It doesn't matter which language it is. So I've been getting practically the same reaction when I was reading some of the same stories I read before. Some stories I read today, it's a new reaction, it's new stories for me as well. But some that I have performed probably a year ago, I could see that the funny parts are still funny, people still feel it, people still understand it, people still sympathize with it, they like it, don't like it, but I don't think it depends on the language, I think it depends on what is written in the story. Because if something is touching emotions, people will react.
Would you kind of relate to it in the Russian way, or if someone just gave you the text and you had to read, would you identify?
I will tell you something. For me as a performer, I have two very different realities when I perform in Russian and when I perform in English.
Yeah.
And the same happens to me when I go home on a plane. I just have to switch one personality into another personality. It is like one computer screen using different different computers, and then you just have to remove one screen and introduce another one. And very often when I work in English and I perform in English and I talk to people in English, and suddenly I see Russian book and Russian text, I'm really amazed that I know that language.
But would you identify this? If it was given to you
This
in
is very
English, would you
English.
identify it? Well, that's what my question. Or would
This
you-
is, for me, it is a very English story, and I, as much as I can be English, I am English. So you probably have my expression of me being English, but this is as much English as I can be. I cannot be Russian and read this story because Russian feelings and Russian emotions and portray and also transportation of emotion in Russian language, I will feel it differently, I will express it differently, it will sound differently. So I can't mix both because they are very, very different. And the more I know English culture, the more I understand about how really, really different two expressions are. So,
I personally didn't find the sense of humor very Russian. I was actually struck by how different they are. I mean, there's a sense of irony in both, but the English story struck me as much more grotesque and sort of, well, with darker streak inside, but a bit more of a sometimes kind of, yes, grotesque and a bit of a slapstick, right? While there was, yes, a bit undercurrent.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I think the English story I write, I was in a completely different place in my life, and I was very, very angry when I wrote the stories.
when you approach a story, the author will always feel a different emotion towards the story that were created. For me, as a person who performs the story, I don't feel the same. I'm trying to find different meanings, and I sometimes find meanings that probably Anna didn't really have. But to me it seems funny, or I see different layers, and I'm sure everybody else will see different layers. And I think this is the beauty of literature. You can build up on layers and find meanings that author didn't really put in the beginning. So I think it's more of a very different piece of art.
Well, isn't that the same as they like music? you know,
Yes, exactly.
depending on your state of whatever, you interpret a song a different way, don't you? And,
Yeah.
and you know, and
It's meant to be that way, right?
You're composing
That's the
and
point.
interpreting a piece, right? That's different every time. Yes.
Are you dreaming English or in Russian?
I dream in cinematographically, you know, I don't know. I never think about it.
You speak with people in Russia or in
I feel quite comfortable in English and in Russian to communicate with people. Yeah, yeah.
I'm even in a more difficult situation because I can also speak Polish.
Uh-huh.
My grandfather was from Poland, so I can speak Polish, English and Russian.
Yeah.
And when they give conflicting ideas and I understand all of them, this is when I have a problem.
Yeah, yeah, and we are exploring exactly this. We call ourselves an ARC, Anglo-Russian Culture Club, but it's kind of an acronym which means an arc, connecting cultures and connecting things. Because both of us were co-organizer of this club. I speak, except of Russian and English, my English is not so perfect, but some English, okay, and I speak German as well, and I spent 23 years in Germany, and Lyudmila speaks fluently, I think, 3 or 4 languages, so we have kind of mixture in our poor heads, and I think it's not something unusual, it's more and more such people. I think bilinguality, trilinguality, quadrilinguality becomes a norm, a new norm, and it's extremely interesting to understand how it works and how it works in whether it produces new ways of creativity and mixing languages and all this. So something which was an exclusion sometimes ago becomes a norm.
I actually don't think it was an exclusion. I think people always spoke a couple of languages, and when I was performing Sophocles' play, for instance, I was amazed that he was talking about immigration.
Yes.
In Oedipus and Colonos, there's got passages about immigration and different languages, and it's an old Greek, and I think people were speaking different languages. If you go to different languages all over the planet, if you go to Asia, they speak Malay, they speak English, they speak Mandarin, they speak some other language. Maybe the scope of languages that we are commonly using is changing from wherever we are, but European languages were widely spoken in Russia as well for as long as trade was, and trade was there forever. So I think there are obviously lots of people who don't speak many languages, but there always was a percentage of people who were speaking 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 languages. So we are part of them.
Yeah, wonderful.
What author, Russian, English, that inspired you? Solzhenitsyn? Pushkin?
No, Gogol. And I think the magical realism, Gogol is a genius, and Bunin, and Nabokov, of course, and Hemingway, the short stories of Hemingway, Isaac Babel. I mean, yeah, that's probably the people who
So you're not Shakespeare,
I would never reach out so high.
It inspired me to perform, that's for sure.
No, very beautiful you are. Lovely, very, very professional.
You use a lot of magic realism to represent like really heavy concepts, right? Like with the husband leaving out of nowhere, you use like the really magic realism, well maybe not even realism, but the really, magical concept of him disappearing into a vacuum cleaner, and with the whale, like with someone being a pariah, you have that really heavy kind of metaphor of them actually being different species. So is there a reason like you're so attracted to magic realism as a whole?
I think because I was writing in the foreign language, it's like you're in the dark, you don't know where you're going.
Right.
It's not like you write in Russian, your own waters, you know where you're going. With English, you're kind of in the dark. So I think I was a little bit cheeky.
Yeah.
Basically, when you're drowning, you're just grabbing anything you can. So I thought, let's grab some images, you know, to get where I want to go.
Yeah.
So I think.
And also, it's kind of images that like can represent the same concept in different languages. You know, like with the disappearance, like being a whale, being a different species when you're an outcast. In Russian
I
and
would
English,
never
like
do it
the
in
imagery is
Russian.
the same. You would
I
do it in
would
Russian.
never. Yeah, no, I wouldn't, because it would be a little bit. No, I wouldn't.
Is it because you think Russian is more expressive as is, and there's no need
Because
for those like heavy
it's like I
metaphor?
said, my daughter, when she speaks Russian, she's just
You
like
change
little girl.
personality,
And when she speaks her native language, English, she is very, you know, growing up and confident how she manipulates the language and da. And I think I do the other way around. I use English like a little child who doesn't really know. And in Russian, I feel much more confident. Like when I take the words, I know what I'm taking, I know how I'm using, and this is more kind of, I think it's very interesting because I didn't think about it, and now I can tell I'm more confident in Russian, yeah.
А пьесы для Собчака еще не писали для театра?
Никто не просил.
Собчак находит пьесы, сам пишет.
Не заказывали.
Are there?
May I ask, to say, when I speak to Olga, I say quotations, say, we've got the similar one in Russian.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just making a reference.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.